It translates onto the trail as a really good operator, just really fun bike. I think the takeaway for me after riding this, neutral riding position, very neutral riding position. That's a lot of fun. Very balanced bike. It's easy to ride. I get on it and I felt right at home. It's easy to ride. It's very balanced, neutral, and more traction in the corners than any bike I've ever ridden. I just can't believe this is a 120 millimeters rear travel bike. Just the geometry is so good for a trail bike. It makes all this stuff so, I don't know what the right word is. You just have a lot of confidence to just let it open up, even though it's only a 120 mil travel bike. That's crazy. Yeah. The other thing I'll mention is this bike has just got me in such a good climbing position in the geometry. The seat tube angle has you forward enough over those pedals, you just really feel a lot of confidence to just mash those pedals. Yeah, that's so fun. That's a nice little waterfall there. What's up, guys? I just got back from my ride on the new 2022 Rocky Mountain Element. This bike, dude, it's so good. So I got 3 days of riding on this bike back in November of 2021. So I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we get snowy winters here. And so in November, I got 3 days of really good riding on this bike. Here we are in February of 2022. It's still winter up in Salt Lake, but we came down to St. George, Utah, into the desert where it's warm, good riding, and I got some filming done today. And it was so good to be back on this bike after, geez, almost 2.5 months of not riding. And oh man, the bike just puts such a big smile on my face. I'm really excited to share with you guys today about this bike. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jason. This is MTB YUMYUM. I do bike reviews. I try to ride as many bikes as I can, full suspension bikes anyway, and post them here and publish them here on my channel. I have an affinity for the short travel 29er, which this Element fits into that wheelhouse. So it's a super exciting bike for me to be on. 120 millimeters of travel in the rear. 130 fork. The bike originally comes with a Fox 34. After 3 days of riding this bike, I just ordered one. I just bought it from Utah Mountain Biking in Lehi, Utah. And I ended up putting a pike on mine, just a little bit stiffer fork, and I just like the way the pike feels, but we'll get into that more here in a minute. So 130 up front, 120 out back, and then Rocky Mountain has this really awesome Ride 4 link right here on the bike. And it's cool because it has 4 separate riding positions, so you can go from slack to a more neutral, setting to a steeper setting. The setting I've been spending the most time in is the 3rd setting, and it's kind of the neutral setting, so it ends up giving you a 65.5 degree head tube angle and a 76.5 degree seat tube angle. That's where I think that's where I'm happiest on this bike, but it can go all the way from 65.8 all the way down to 65 degree head tube angle. So that's a pretty slack bike for a 120 mil travel bike. Those are some real trail geometry numbers. The reach on this size medium is 455 millimeters. I'm 5'8". I always fit real well on a size medium bike, and this is no different. I end up scooting that saddle forward just maybe about 1/4 of an inch forward, just to tidy up that cockpit just a little bit. And then I'm running a little bit shorter 30 millimeter stem on here and 750 mil bars. And oh, dude, the bike just feels so good. The first time I rode this bike, I wish I had footage of it, you guys, because your first ride on a bike, that's what I really like to capture and share with you guys. But man, the bike was just so balanced. It fit me real well. The stem was a little long on the demo bike that I rode, but here on my personal bike, it just feels perfect, man. So good. Let's talk about climbing. In fact, as we go through this video, we're gonna talk about climbing, descending, who I think the bike is for, what type of person, and then toward the end of the video, I'll compare this bike to other 120 mil travel bikes that are available right now. climbing is really good. It's zippy, it's efficient, it feels good. I never reach down and lock out the bike. I just leave it in the open position the whole time. The bike finds traction, gets up the trail. It climbs good. It scoots up the trail really well.
Yeah, right there as much as you can.
Yeah, baby. Sick. The demo bike that I had was the Carbon 50 model. And I'll link that down below. So they have different models. There's the Carbon 50 model, kind of had XT and SLX parts on it. And the bike weighed about 27 pounds. The bike feels zippy and efficient. It gets through technical climbing pretty good. It doesn't climb as well as the Ibis Ripley. It doesn't climb as well as the Pivot Trail 429. Those bikes are also in this category. Those are bikes I've spent a lot of time on. The Pivot Trail 429 climbs a little bit better, especially in like more technical climbing situations. But in terms of efficiency, just pedaling along the trail, this feels right there with those guys in terms of efficiency. Technical climbing maybe lacks just a little bit. Descending is incredible on this bike. In terms of the geometry, like the positioning on the bike, this bike has it's a pretty long wheelbase on this bike, and I think that adds to the traction that you get in the corners on this bike. Those first 3 days I rode this bike on my home trails back in November of 2021, I was just railing this bike so hard in the corners, so much traction. The rear end just has tons of traction. The bike feels efficient and good on the downhill. The geometry is just so slack that it is shocking how fast you can charge on this bike, and it stays totally composed and good. At first I had the first 3 days I rode this bike, I didn't get a chance to mess with the volume spacers in this Fox DPS shock. And so on this bike, luckily, I was able to put a larger volume spacer in here. So my first 3 rides, the rear end would get hung up a little bit every once in a while on fast chundry descents, and I just get that kind of like the rear wheel would hit something, I kind of hit forward. It's because I had to put more air pressure in it to keep the bike from bottoming out. Also, I had to turn the rebound down a lot to not have that kind of getting hung up feeling. So now I put a larger volume spacer in the DPS shock, running a little bit lower pressure. I'm running 175 PSI in here instead of 190 is what I had in there. And so, and then I'm also able, doing that, I'm able to run a little bit faster rebound, and it feels really good. Still have that tons of traction feeling, tons of confidence feeling. I would say descending, it doesn't feel as deep and plush as like the Evil, the Following, or the Pivot Trail 429, or the Santa Cruz Tallboy. Those bikes feel deeper, more plush, more bottomless, you know, that real bottomless feeling. This feels more supportive, and it feels more zippy. And, you know, there's a lot more feedback coming from this bike in your feet and in the pedals. And the best way to describe it is it just feels really open and active and not so damp and controlled. The geometry of the bike is what gives you that really controlled feeling. So that rear end doesn't feel as plush as maybe those 3 bikes, the Santa Cruz, the Evil, or the Pivot. But it has that more engaging, satisfying, zippy feeling that I value out of a short travel 29er bike. That's what I'm looking for in a short travel bike, is something that's really engaging. You get a lot of feedback through the pedals. It doesn't feel harsh at all. I wouldn't say it's harsh at all, like a hardtail or something like that. You can still charge hard because this geometry is so good. On some of the slower speed turns, you know, maybe my Ibis Ripley that I used to have, I sold the Ibis Ripley, but maybe that Ibis Ripley was more maneuverable and more sporty, slightly more than this. And maybe that's because of these geometry numbers are pretty slack, right? But for a trail bike, I think this is kind of what I'm looking for, you know. Definitely, I love that 65.5-degree head tube angle. It's just, you can just mob on the downhills and just charge. The rear end keeps up just fine. You know, every bike's a little bit of a sacrifice, and you know, there's just no one perfect bike, right? But in terms of tons of tractions on the downhill, very efficient, zippy climbing on the uphill, this is all there. It's really a lot of fun. Today's video is sponsored by Lab Austere Hip Packs. Lab Austere Hip Packs has been sponsoring the channel for almost a year now. They make these incredible, lightweight, minimalist hip packs that offer 2 locations here for water bottles. It's really easy to just grab a drink, get a drink, then reholster, you know, even in the middle of pedaling. That's the beauty of the hip pack, in my opinion, how easy it is to access the water bottle. The other thing is it just rides really low off your back, down here on your hips, kind of like a construction worker's tool belt, right? You know, so it's not getting your back all sweaty. You barely even notice it's there. In fact, that's what makes it such a good product. It's lightweight, it's minimalist. You don't even know it's there. I really like that. Right now, they're still offering the viewers of my channel 25% off of this hip pack. So click the link down below and use promo code YUMYUM at checkout for 25% off. They've kind of made it sound like that 25% off coupon code's going to go away. It's been here for a year, and so I would take advantage of that while they still have these deals. I take it on every ride I go on. It holds all my stuff right now. I've got my jacket rolled up in this one, you know, because I only needed 1 water bottle for my ride today, so I stick my jacket in that extra water bottle holder. But I couldn't recommend this hip pack more. It's incredible. All right, wrapping things up here. Who is this bike for? It's crazy because the previous Rocky Mountain Element was a purebred, just race bike. Very cross country. There's nothing trail about it. And on Rocky Mountain's website, you know, this still shows up under their cross country bikes, although it's a trail bike in my opinion. Everything about it just screams trail bike. So who's it for? It's for the guy who maybe used to race. Maybe he used to own an Element 4 years ago, and he's probably looking at this bike thinking, geez, scratching his head thinking, that's not a cross-country bike. Well, if you're not racing so much anymore, not competing for podiums in every single race, and you want to have only one bike that can still go do more high-speed trails, more chundery trails, this bike's got you covered. It's very efficient. It builds up lightweight. In fact, I'm embarrassed to even tell you guys this, but this bike, as is, weighs 25.5 pounds. It would have been lighter if I kept the Fox 34 up front, but I put the Pike on there and made it a little bit heavier. But 25.5 pounds for a bike that just mobs the downhills, that's mind-blowing. It's just so cool. I feel so lucky to be riding these awesome bikes. I had these lightweight wheels built by Salt Cycles, and they do such a good job for these wheels. In any case, that's who I think the bike's for. Someone that maybe used to race, is not racing as much anymore. Maybe you or this person rides with a lot of guys on longer travel bikes, and your cross-country bike wasn't keeping up. Well, this is a bike you can still go race cross-country on, still be really competitive, I think. But man, it will reward you, and you'll be so glad you have it on all the other days when you're riding and not just racing. Comparing it to other bikes in the category, man, whenever I ride the Pivot Trail 429 or the Santa Cruz Tallboy, or just even recently, just yesterday, I rode the the Following. Those rear ends on those bikes, that Delta Link that they use on the Following, and the DW Link on that Pivot Trail 429 are so good. Sometimes I think, man, it would be nice to have a really plush, deep filling bike like that, right? And so when I compare this bike to those, I sometimes think, man, that would be really nice. But those bikes are heavy. The Evo Following was 28.5 pounds, is what I want to say. And the Santa Cruz Tallboy, the same way, is really heavy bikes, right? And so they don't build up quite as lightweight as something like this, and they don't have that really efficient, zippy feel. The Pivot Trail 429 actually does, but this bike kind of stands out on its own, in my opinion. The geometry of this bike, that's the final thing I'll say. The geometry of this bike is so unique to this category of 120 mil travel bikes. And again, click the link down below over to Rocky Mountain's website and just look at the numbers on this bike. It translates onto the trail as a really good operator. Just really fun bike. I think the takeaway for me after riding this, neutral riding position, very neutral riding position. That's a lot of fun. Very balanced bike. It's easy to ride. I get on it and I felt right at home. It's easy to ride. It's very balanced, neutral, and more traction in the corners than any bike I've ever ridden. I mean, I really think so. The Ibis Ritmo had a lot of traction in the corners too. There's just some bikes that just work, and this is one of them. In fact, I would have to look that up. I bet you that Ibis Ritmo, which is a longer travel bike, the original one that came out a couple years ago, might have pretty similar geometry to this bike. I wonder if Maybe that means something. In any case, we're going to have a live stream 2 days after this video is published. So if you're watching this video the day it came out, 2 days from now, we're going to have a live stream here on YouTube. And that's where we can spend about an hour, a lot more time than we do here in these videos. And we can interact in the chat. Any questions that you put in the comment section down below. So any questions that you have about this bike or anything that you want to talk about, put it in the comment section down below. Hit the like button too. That really helps promote this video. And then in 2 days, we're going to have a live stream. We're going to talk a lot about this bike, get more into the weeds on this bike. And that's where we're really going to talk about how this bike compares to other bikes in this category, including the Ibis Ripley. I'm excited to have a live stream with you guys and hang out. Thanks for watching, guys. I've enjoyed doing this YouTube channel. I can't do it without the support. I can't do it without the support of viewers like you, and I really appreciate it. And also sponsors like Lab Austere, who sponsor this video and provide that sponsorship for me to publish a video like this. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you in 2 days. Excited to hang out with you and talk more. Yeah, click the links down below. We'll see you.